Today's Road to Autonomy, we got a special guest. Permian Pete. I'm doing my best Yosemite Sam impersonation. See, I got the hat because I love hats. And we got Permian Pete here, the famous host of the Bigelow battle, who now has joined Kodiak, so no more Bigelow battles. Pete went out and he pulled out his best Billy Bob Thornton and headed to the Permian Basin. Pete, did you stop at the bar? Did you have a beer? How is life in the Permian?
When you say stop at the bar, there's probably one bar to stop at, Grayson. It's not like metaphorically that, the bar in quotation marks. It is the one bar that is out there in Kermit, Texas. I would say I probably did have a pop after work once we were all done and back at the hotel on my maiden trip to the Permian Basin in the last week or so.
One pop after work. You're on corporate rules now. I need free flowing Pete back.
Well, I mean, I guess we should probably note for the audience, Grayson, that since my last appearance here, I've made a big career change, as you mentioned. I am on the Kodiak comms team now, so no Bigelow battles, that's for sure. That would probably be a curveball if we jumped back in time to January of 25 back at CES. When that battle perhaps occurred, and I was a innocent bystander to it. Really, I'm not sure how my name got attached to it, but the unexpected leg of that self-driving truck stool was that I am now working for a self-driving truck company, and Sterling Anderson is gone to the more traditional auto industry. Who would have seen those two things happening?
It's musical chairs. Then lo and behold, you go and do that, and then your competitor Aurora, they go to the Permian Basin. Well, they were trying to do their best impersonation of Permian Pete.
I probably cannot speak to our competitors' motives, but nice to have them join us down in the Permian. It's a challenging environment, as I'm sure they will soon find out, and I can certainly tell you more about that from a Kodiak perspective over the course of the next several minutes or hour here on the podcast.
Overall thoughts. What did you think of the Permian? First time there. Was it like the TV show Landman, or what was it like?
Yeah, Grayson, I think that I expected kind of Landman, right? Like that's what I was expecting going down. Big fan of the book Friday Night Lights growing up. Big fan a bit of Landman these days more recently. So I kind of expected this vast expanse punctuated by the occasional pump jack on the landscape. You look closer at it, though, and you see this beehive of industrial activity, right? This is the heart of America's oil and gas industry. And like lo and behold, you look out and there are Kodiak driverless trucks doing God's work out there in the Permian. And that was something, because like you look around and there's one at the launch zone going through its final checks before it gets launched. There's one in the Atlas sand silo getting its load of frac sand put in, and then you look down the road and there's one hauling doubles turning the corner going off to a wellhead. So like it is interesting out there, that industrial aspect, and it's busy. I'll tell you, it's there's a lot going on in the Permian would be the 10,000-foot view here.
Yeah, then you had the announcement yesterday where Eric Schmidt with the Texas Land Corporation, they're going to start putting data centers out there. But you said something really interesting. Going to the wellhead, going to different sites. So these trucks then, if I'm hearing right, they're going to different job sites throughout the Permian. These are not fixed routes going to the same ones every time. They're going to different ones.
I mean, we have routes that we're running and trucks running on them, so it's not a single fixed route, but let's just say there's lots of activity down there, and we're going to different silos, different places on behalf of our customer, Atlas Energy Solutions.
You and I put the old automotive news hat on. You and I had breakfast, and we talked about breakfast when we were in Detroit. Weather conditions, road conditions of who's going to deploy where when you and I were trying to figure out robo-taxis. So how are these trucks deployed? Are they on dirt roads, gravel roads, paved roads? What's the if you want to call it the operating environment like? Because I studied the weather there. It gets windy, it gets dusty, and it gets inclement at times.
Totally. And I would say it's hard to describe those roads because some of them are dirt roads, some of them are gravel, some of them are like I was thinking in my mind, like the old Oregon Trail, like where this is like barely a road. I would say overall, these are unforgiving environments. Um, Grayson, you may remember from our breakfast in Michigan, like, everybody in Michigan thinks that the roads are bad here, so much so that it was probably like the primary campaign issue in our last two gubernatorial elections. Gretchen Whitmer's slogan is "Fix the damn roads." Well, I can tell you that everything is bigger in Texas, as they say, including the potholes. And man, like I'm talking like potholes of several feet distance, several feet deep. And when you are, top heavy hauling frac sand in a double trailer, you need to handle those types of roads delicately. Like I'm really, and I'm not just saying this, right? Like I'm impressed with what we can handle in the Permian. Like you need to be on your game, and we are developing those chops and showcasing what physical AI looks like in the real unforgiving world on an everyday basis here.
What causes those potholes? Because if you look at Detroit or you look at the Northeast, they're caused by the salt and the plows are digging in, and then over time, they get bigger and bigger and bigger over time. But in the Permian, is it just because of the amount of truck traffic? What's causing these, if you want to call these the term, ginormous potholes to emerge?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a couple things. One is, as you just said, there's a ton of truck traffic on these roads, and I think that you know you probably would have to ask either someone who manages these private roads or someone from like Texas DOT who manages the public road aspect specifics. But I do think you know, most likely reason from a layman's perspective here is probably there's an intense amount of truck traffic. The weather conditions, as you mentioned, are also tough. There's blowing sand all over the place all the time. There's dust storms. There are flash floods that probably render these roads inoperable at various times. So there's a lot that these roads endure. Like that's the other aspect I kind of maybe should go back on a little bit is like I was expecting that like big openness that you see in Landman, but there's parts of the Permian that are the deserts. Like this is the literal desert. Like you turn this way or that way, and it's like Aladdin. And there's these big sand dunes. I half expected to see a pyramid around some of the corners. Like it is out there. It is not just well, I guess the oil and gas is drilled in the desert, but it is also a desert environment in places.
It's a harsh environment. There's no way to say it otherwise. It is a harsh environment, but it's also a very profitable environment, and it is an environment that needs automation. If you look at public filings, for example, Chevron, and they're investing billions of dollars in the Permian Basin with a big focus on automation. Putting on your Bigelow reporter hat, because you still got it in your genes, once reporter, always reporter. Did you notice of any of the other oil and gas companies looking to embrace automation? Perhaps over a beer, you had a conversation with an engineer at an oil and gas company. Any signs of emerging automation that you were able to pick up on when you were down there?
I would say this, and I don't want to speak too much for our partner Atlas out there, and they'd probably be a great guest to have on for you sometime. But like they've said publicly that automation is a big part of their strategy in the Permian and elsewhere, like in many different ways, right? It's not just driverless trucks. That's our particular aspect that we bring to the table for Atlas, but they are automating every process that they can. And I think that's a big part of their strategy. As you mentioned, obviously others in the oil and gas industry looking to go that direction now. So when I put on my, reporter hat or 30,000 foot view hat, I think that fits into what we see across America right now. And it's this broader strategy to infuse robotics and automation into many different industries, right? Like I think that's a matter of national competitiveness right now. And what's going on in the Permian with oil and gas is one flavor of that.
And I want to highlight Atlas has one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I haven't seen it in person, but I've seen it in magazines. The 42-mile Dune Express of moving fracking sand fully automated on a giant conveyor belt.
Yes.
Did you see it? Did you see it?
Yes, I saw the conveyor belt. It almost from the distance looks like you're going up to an amusement park and you see like the roller coaster off in the distance. Like this is the industrial version of that. that's kind of what it looked like in action. It's really cool. You see it at night from a distance too, like even further. Like you're out there and it's lit up a little bit. So I did see the conveyor belts, and man, what a cool piece of machinery. Like again, put my reporter hat back on. Like I just want to know more. Want to know more about the conveyor belt, how they engineered that, and what makes it work on a daily basis. But it's impressive. Grayson, we need to have you out to the Permian to see that firsthand as well. I think you and others would enjoy seeing that for sure. It's one more way. Like there's work getting done out there, and Atlas has found numerous ways to get tough jobs done. And as we like to say at Kodiak, that's what we do with our AI powered autonomous drivers. Do the tough jobs out there, and obviously the Permian is an ideal location for finding tough jobs.
Yes, and as you know, and this is well documented in multiple public data sources, the job turnover in the Permian is higher than most industries. Just watch Landman, you can figure it out why. From a testing, deployment, commercialization standpoint, do you view the Permian as a really great learning environment where you're operating in hostile weather? So when Kodiak eventually transitions to more over the road operations, you'll take all these learnings from the Permian with you?
No question, Grayson. I think that you're spot on with that, and you may have even heard our CEO Don Burnett say that the Permian is a literal and figurative sandbox for us to learn in, and that is across technology, across our safety case, and across our product too. Like I think that's, I've seen the technology working before. I've seen the safety case and got a better understanding of our safety case in my 3 months now at Kodiak. But what I really got out of the visit to the Permian that I hadn't gleaned, and I think you probably need a firsthand visit to truly understand, is the operation. Like, and that's what we're co-developing with Atlas too. Like, where do these trucks launch from? Where do they land at? Who runs the checklists before the truck goes out on the road to make sure that everything is ready? What is the fleet management like? Who goes and cleans a sensor? How does that notification get done? Like, working with a customer to ensure that their needs are met is not to be underestimated. And Atlas is a great partner for us in the Permian that is allowing us to get those learnings. And like, we're going to bring that into the long haul operation as well. Like, how does this product actually work with a customer? That those are invaluable learnings that we're getting in the Permian now. And we're also getting learnings on the safety and technology side too. Like, I don't want to discount that either. Like, one example for you, like, obviously if you're out testing on highways, doing the long haul stuff, like, you'll occasionally / rarely see a wrong way driver, right? So it's a rare scenario, but you damn well better be sure you can handle that when you see that. So the unstructured roads that we're running in the Permian are two-way roads. So we're gathering a ton of data on what it looks like to have oncoming traffic on the same swath of pavement. So that's like one concrete example of how the Permian is also informing our technology to prepare us for long haul operations, which we expect to begin in the second half of 2026. I almost said this year, but I was getting ahead of myself. We're still in 2025. We've got just a little bit of ways to go, but yeah, I think there's just a ton of positive things that come out of the Permian that accelerate our readiness on the long haul side of things. Those are not just parallel developments, but one very much feeding the other as well.
What have you learned from a technical standpoint? Because if you look at a route that was in your Q3 filing, you're going from DFW to Atlanta. You're going through, if you want to call it Thunderstorm Alley, because you get a lot of thunderstorms on that route. And obviously the Permian, you get flash flooding, you get dust, you get rocks, you get pebbles, all sorts of, you want to call it fun things that are flying all over the place. Has the team, since you're based on SensorPods, have you looked into techniques to harden the sensor pods just based on the environment, and then potentially taking that to the over the road when you start going into more inclement weather?
I would say that no question, no question, right? Like we've talked about how we've experienced numerous dust storms in the Permian. That's just sort of a way of life, or these big storms that produce flash floods. So I think that um, it has not only like given us an opportunity to see how our hardware performs in those environments, but again, back to the operation. Okay, what do you do when a flash flood occurs? Who is responsible for sensing that? How does that get communicated throughout the fleet? So yes, it has stress test our technology, but it has also stress test our product as well. And I think that again, back to like it's so important to learn these things, and we feel like we're going to be that much more ready to hit the pavement running, no pun intended, as we start driverless long haul operations here in the second half of 26.
Which to me, you could use the term an accelerant and the business model in the Permian. So as of your Q3 SEC filing, there is 10 trucks currently operating, and those trucks are owned by Atlas. Is Atlas operating those trucks? Are you operating them together? What does that look like from an operational standpoint, since Atlas owns the physical asset?
That's right. Atlas does own the physical asset, which I think is a differentiation in our business model, right? Like we don't own the truck, we provide the technology and operation. So we are, our command center in DFW area is watching these trucks, and we have our assisted autonomy capabilities that can also operate these trucks. But right now, Atlas is the owner and operator of these trucks.
So the trucks then, just to put it in layman's terms, are integrated into Atlas's day-to-day operations.
Yes, they have a large fleet that is obviously bigger than our current fleet with them, or their fleet that contains Kodiak's technology, and that will continue to increase over time. Right, we have 100 truck binding order with Atlas that we continue to fulfill. So our presence as part of their fleet continues to grow.
From a day-to-day operational standpoint, obviously the Permian Basin is vast. If you read Atlas Energy's filings, they own hundreds of acres. They have multiple sites within their property. Is it Atlas making the decision? Okay, Kodiak truck's going to go to site A. It's going to go to site B. Is that decision being made by Atlas of where these trucks are going to be deployed into the overall operational plan?
We do test them first to make sure that those routes are okay for autonomy, obviously, and then kind of back to what I was saying about putting a product in customers' hands. These are things that we're working on an ongoing basis together with Atlas. So they are operating them on the driverless side, but we have a whole maintenance fleet. We have a maintenance facility in Midland where when these trucks need work, or the autonomy hardware needs work, they can be quickly taken care of. That was one of the aspects of something we learned working with a customer, was just how quickly trucks need to get the maintenance done that's required and get them back out on the road. Right, downtime is a killer. So we've designed our SensorPod hardware to be easily swapped in and out on the ostensibly on the side of the road. So right now we have Kodiak field technicians who would go do something like that should an event occur, and if a truck needs more extensive maintenance, we can bring it to the facility in Midland.
I remember Don, Jordan, and Dan hosted me at your DFW facility years ago, and Don says, "You could do a pull-up on this." And I said to Don, "Bullshit. I don't want to break your truck." And lo and behold, I was able to do a pull-up on it. And I was amazed at how strong they were. And then Don was showing me I don't remember the exact, but I'll just call it a few connectors, and how simple, basically, it's almost NASCAR-like. Is that still happening?
Yes. I mean, to the extent that it needs to happen, that is exactly what's happening. And we're, really pleased with how that aspect has helped customer, right? Like, you're right. And maybe we should describe for listeners what exactly we're talking about. But Kodiak has its camera, LiDAR, and radar in a sensor pod that attaches where a Class 8 truck's side view mirror would typically attach. And we have the side view mirrors are also part of that assembly, but that is where the bulk of our sensors are housed. And if a sensor is inoperative for whatever reason, if it's dusty, just clean it off. But um, if they need to be swapped out, you can easily take off this mirror like assembly and integrate a new one back on with minimal effort. I don't know if we've said what how much or how little time that takes. Maybe that'd be an interesting thing for us to consider in the year ahead. But you're right, it is NASCAR like, where we hope to get a field technician out there to uninstall a bad one and put the new one back on again, a minimal amount of time to minimize the downtime for our customers.
Years ago, you and I we did a podcast on this. We had a lot of private conversations. We did a podcast on it. Was Toyota and how they have parts at certain strategic locations, and they're able to pull those parts very quickly. And then you and I went at great length about the inefficiencies that unlocks. As we look to the second half of 2026, is it fair for me to start thinking, okay, let's just say you have a facility in Atlanta, you have the DFW facility, you have one in, say, Oklahoma City, you have one in San Antonio. Is it fair to start thinking, okay, there'll be sensor pods stored at those locations in case something's needed, and then you could put what's called Kodiak NASCAR to work? Is that a fair way to start thinking about this?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it is public record that we've got facilities in Dallas, Fort Worth area, and Lancaster specifically, Atlanta, and we're running routes up to Oklahoma City. So yes, I think that we have the parts needed for maintenance at those facilities. Absolutely.
And how should we start to think about it because there's all the hours of service everybody's familiar with, and obviously when you go driverless and the regulation changes, that's all going to change. But how do we think about it from a parts standpoint? Has the company made any data public on how long a sensor pod lasts before it has to be swapped out, depending on the environment? Any insights that we can look into that?
Probably nothing I could share with you as to our expected lifetimes, but again, like just kind of going back to what we previously said, like we have stress tested and hardened our hardware by working in the Permian. So that is definitely something we're conscientious of, and hoping to minimize downtime if any is needed at all.
Do you feel that what you saw in the Permian from the operational standpoint, the partnership standpoint, the weather standpoint, could be transitioned into other similar areas? So you have the North Dakota oil fields, you have the Canadian oil sands, you have what you and I did a podcast on this about Caterpillar years ago, Western Australia. And then obviously we had the big announcement the other day with Vale and Caterpillar going into Brazil. Do you see those potential environments as growth markets for autonomous trucks?
Broadly speaking, absolutely, right? I think that's what we're proving every day in the Permian, is that many of these environments are ideally suited for autonomy, right? I think we have to look at, is there the right environment? Is there the right partner? Is there the right business case ultimately, right? Like, we think there's a $65 billion total addressable market in what we call these industrial applications, which I think summarizes what the type of deployments that you're talking about. But I guess I would just be careful in saying, like, just because that environment exists, like, we want to make sure that the business case is there behind it before just deploying anywhere. So that's what we evaluate as we look at opportunities to perhaps replicate this elsewhere.
I like that. And I said this to Don, and he did a podcast on it where I compared Kodiak to ABC capital cities from a capital efficiency standpoint. I like the fact that the company has, if you want to call it, off-road business, which is not traditional trucking, and the on-road business. Do you see those two businesses continuing to complement each other, especially when you start to begin on highway, or if you want to use the term, on-road operations in the second half of 2026?
Absolutely. I think that, again, there's a 65 billion TAM in industrial applications. That's, the TAM on the long haul side is certainly greater, but I certainly see the opportunity on the industrial side as well. And I will tell you, Grayson, like, that too is something that's back to, like, why did I, leave my job as a journalist and go inside somewhere, like, and why Kodiak? Like, the fact that they had this industrial business, that we have this defense business, that we have this long haul business where we're already working with, like, Werner Enterprises, JB Hunt, and others. like the fact that we play in all three of those verticals, I thought on the outside, like I was like, what Kodiak is doing there is really smart. So that's one of those reasons why I wanted to join Kodiak in particular. I thought that this diversification of your business is a very smart strategic play, and now I'm seeing that firsthand.
You rolled your sleeves up. You got dirty and you went to the Permian. I was reading a piece today from Andreessen Horowitz, and this has been well documented for several outlets, probably going on over the last 12 months now. The reindustrialization of America. Do you view that as a tailwind to the Kodiak business model? Because it's not just the venture side now. Now it's the PE side, and JP Morgan has that multi-trillion-dollar fund that Todd Combs from the Berkshire's running. It just seems like there's giant, if you want to call it financial momentum in the financial markets, are saying, okay, we want America to build again. Do you view that as a catalyst for Kodiak?
Short answer, yes. Long, unequivocally. Longer answer, I went to the Re-industrialized conference in Detroit last summer. I think it was July. It was probably like at the beginning of this early innings period that you identified here as there's all sorts of tailwinds now for reindustrializing in America in a way that we were not before. So I think this reindustrialized push has definitely helped Kodiak from maybe specifically a defense perspective, right? The White House is looking for dual use technologies that are being commercialized in regular business every day that can also be applied to defense. So we have a defense division that's participated. We just completed a $30 million contract with the U.S. Army earlier in 2025. I think that there's a lot of growth opportunity there. And then I'd say, like, also along the lines of industrializing again in America, yes, we're seeing those tailwinds from the White House in terms of action on the AV front specifically. Like you saw the US DOT just a couple of weeks ago granted waivers to the orange triangle problem, right? Which was very real. That there was federal regulation that a truck that's disabled and pulls to the side of the road, the driver has to put out either an orange warning triangle or flares or some sort of hazard identification within 10 minutes of that truck being pulled over. So in the case of autonomous trucking, there is no driver to do that. So really big tailwinds from FMCSA and US DOT to say you can use a flashing warning beacon that's affixed to the cab in lieu of that, as long as you apply for the waiver and are granted that waiver. So that's definitely a big step in the right direction. So I am seeing that push for automation and innovation and industrialization all kind of converging. And we're grateful for that support from the federal level.
And the president signed the AI executive order, which is done really well. And then you have the leadership of Secretary Duffy at DOT, and well documented. We don't have to get into specific cases or incidents, but the crackdown on undocumented drivers with 18-wheelers, we saw, unfortunately, horrific incidents there. And now JB Hunt actually came out with a report, who's one of your partners, and saying there's going to be a shortage of drivers. When do you think that we see movement from the federal level to backfill that with automation in autonomous trucking? Because it's a made in America technology that traces its roots back to the U.S. military with DARPA. It's solving a problem that is widespread and rampant, bigger than I think any of us really thought. And oh, by the way, it's a heck lot safer than the alternative, which was out there before Secretary Duffy started this crackdown.
Grayson, I think, as you know, we're seeing some coalescing of support for a federal AV bill that may address autonomous vehicles overall and trucking in particular right now. And while we've seen this kind of push happen in previous sessions of Congress over the last 6 or 7 years, I think there's real hope right now that the momentum is legitimate and hopefully bipartisan, and that caution that the details remain. We haven't read the line item provisions here just yet, but I think directionally, there's hope that we're moving in the right direction and that we'll see action in Congress in support of an AV bill next year. And if I can take this in a side direction for a moment, you mentioned some of the terrible incidents that we've seen on the road, and I don't want to comment on the immigration issue, but I will say something else that stood out in the Permian was you can't go very far without seeing a roadside memorial. It's a dangerous place to operate cars, trucks, whatever vehicle you're operating is. I don't have the figures in front of me, but we all know that there's about 5,000 fatalities per year overall from crashes involving large trucks in America. Texas itself has, I think, gone like 20 straight years having a fatality every day on Texas roads somewhere. And I guess again, anecdotally, I'd be willing to bet that like there's a greater than average number of those crashes like in and around the Permian. Like it just struck me anecdotally that this is dangerous. This is dangerous driving. In part because like it's these vast stretches that I've talking to people, at various locations. I guess like, you imagine you're an oil worker, you just got off shift from, working 2 weeks on 15 hours a day. And now you're driving home across the desert where there's nothing to see. Like speaking for myself, like I know just doing 15 minutes down these straight roads for me was enough to kind of be lulled into a, state of complacency a little bit. So I only got to get this little taste of like why these roads are dangerous, but unequivocally, like the safety benefits that automation will bring, like that was something else that was just apparent in a firsthand visit.
Were there traffic patterns that you noticed in the Permian? Okay, 4 a.m. going to the job site, 2 p.m. going home. Did you know, or is it just consistent all day LA like traffic? What was the traffic patterns like?
I can't say it was LA like traffic, but it wasn't nothing. Like these are busy roads. Are they busier at certain times than other? Like I think our shift change was at like 6 p.m. We had people on coming and going out of the facility. So I think that there is traffic to contend with. And once you get on the main drag and go to Midland, there's definitely certain times a day where like you see these stream of headlights all going in one direction. And that probably aligns with, typical again, like I don't want my like 4-day experience there to speak as gospel on traffic patterns in Western Texas. But like, that's kind of when I saw lots of traffic and, headlights or taillights all lit up against the sunset. It would probably be like 5-6 o'clock at night in particular.
And I've been fortunate enough to spend quality time in Montana and Wyoming, and these roads go straight as an arrow, as far as you can see, basically to the horizon line. Is that a similar thing that when I think about this, what you think from the Permian roads, that they just go long and straight for long periods of time, or they windy? Do they have water canals on the side for the flash flooding? How give us some more details on the roads.
Yeah, I'd say like mostly straight roads, not windy. It didn't remind me of Montana or Wyoming or Colorado necessarily because there's no mountains. Like I always, if I envision what you're talking about, I kind of see the mountain off in the distance as I'm driving. But I saw the pump jacks off in the distance, and that was about it in the Permian. It's more, I don't want to say it's totally flat. There is some like rolling hill aspect to it, but those roads are mostly straight for long periods of time. Definitely, anywhere off the main highway is probably a dirt road. Winds, kind of classic Texas tumbleweed going across the road. Again, more desert than I would have thought. Reminded me in some ways of, and this is like adjacent to New Mexico, right? Or part of the Permian Basin, I think, if I looked at the map, actually is in New Mexico. So I think that's probably the best comparison where, I can remember days like going back years, like, all right, I move out of Albuquerque and drive south or or maybe north up to Durango. And that's more the environment where it's deserty, desert rock, sand, um, in most cases gravel road. And this is just where I'm driving my rental car, right? This is before I get in the truck itself and go for a ride on some of the roads that where we operate. Which, again, by the way, like I should emphasize if I haven't yet, like we have a driverless operation. Like the driverless trucks that we talk about in the Permian do not have a human in the cab. So this is important. When we talk about what constitutes driverless service to us, no driver in the cab is what you see here. So that's what our trucks are contending with on a daily basis as they work for Atlas.
And I'm going to base this off of your SEC filings in your filing that went along from your IR department. You had no human observer in the vehicle as well. These things are operating total humanless, which is pretty amazing. And you're the only company in the United States that's doing that for trucking as of today. Did you get to go for a ride with no supervisor, nothing? Did you sit in the back and buckle up and say, Permian Pete, let's go?
I did not go for a ride with no. So we do have development routes that we do have drivers, testing and preparing for Atlas, right? So when I rode in the trucks, those are the routes that I did, because the trucks that are truly driverless, like, right, those are in Atlas's hands. So like me coming to visit, I don't want to mess with their operation. Like they're busy running a business. So the rides that I did were on our development routes with our safety driver team. And that was eye-opening enough, man. That was incredible to see how, again, like I was seeing how our trucks handled these potholes firsthand. Got to see how our assisted autonomy capabilities work. That's with our remote support team in the Dallas area. That was really eye-opening and interesting. Got to see how we haul doubles and what that feels like. That was interesting. And I'm not the most experienced guy in trucks hauling double trailers, but as we did this on the dev routes, our drivers were kind of telling me about the complexities involved in hauling doubles, and like you do take these wider turns, right? So on a real practical level, what does that look like out here in the Permian? And I got to experience that firsthand, and it's really, again, like I know I'm coming from a certain vantage point here, but impressive to see, how we're spooling up this service, how we're answering customer needs in the real world.
Just for the audience, just to clarify, for doubles, is that what we've seen the UPS trucks on the highway where you have trailer one here, trailer here too, and this is not technical, so please don't send technical notes. Basically, a trailer hitch connecting them. Is that a way to? And then you have the Kodiak driver in the front. Is that a way to think about doubles, or they look different than that? How should we picture that?
No, more or less, I think you're spot on, and I'm not enough of a trucking guy to know the differences, but I believe what they call that connector between the two is the dolly. So that connects trailer one to trailer two, and the other notes that would be more subtle if you're making a comparison to something like the one you just made. Like these are frac sand trailers, and that is a very specific looking trailer out there. That's almost a pentagon type shape. So it's not a box. It's more specialized. And that was interesting. Just, being someone who's like, has not visited the Permian Basin before, like, you don't see those types of trailers on the roads up here in Michigan or in Florida, but they're everywhere and out there. It's just like interesting. Like, oh, this is like an ordinary part of the landscape there that as a visitor, I am not used to.
And you have been many times on over-the-road trucks as a journalist and passenger. How was the experience different from off-road? Was it bumpier? Was it just more, okay, I've been on 100 of these over-the-road things. Okay, yep, you kind of know what to look for. Were you just a little kid in a candy store when you were on the off-road just trying to learn all the little nuances?
No question. And I'd say part of it is like our driver is designed to handle these tough roads, which does not necessarily mean it's designed for human comfort. Those are different things that you're optimizing for, right? So in a truly driverless sense, like uh, you know, that's not what we're aiming for. So definitely a bumpy ride, but um, it almost reminded me of being in a Jeep in Moab, where you're like, all right, we're coming up on this giant pothole or climbing out of one, and like, how are we going to handle this? It reminded me of going up like a giant rock in a Jeep 4x4, like on some off-road trail in Moab, and that's probably like the most apt comparison I can make as to what it was like driving in these, except you know you're hauling frac sand for a customer in the back, and um it's a delicate thing to do, Grayson. Like I think that's the like word I keep coming back to. um that's just what it's like out there, and it's unlike anything I've ever done. Like the other aspect I would say is um for all trucks out there, like everybody in Atlas's fleet, or I guess other private companies that are out there too, operating on these private roads, like the speed limit is lower because of the fact that they're so terrible. I want to say that in most cases, if not all that I saw, it's 25 miles an hour or lower. So that aspect is different than going for a ride, on the highway.
There's a lot of differences, but at the end of the day, both on road and off road are a business. We're days away from 2026. I can't believe it. We're just merely days away. Taking off the Kodiak hat, putting on the Pete hat. What's your outlook for the autonomy market? We're seeing a lot of interest from investors. We're seeing things heat up. Waymo's about to raise a big round, reported by Bloomberg, and you have the other chatter going around. Do you think that 26 becomes this huge momentum year where autonomy starts to become more and more business and accelerates as we go into 2027, if you want to call it the golden year that everybody's been talking about for a decade now?
Everybody has been talking about 2027 as the golden year. Yes. All right. So taking off my Kodiak hat and putting on my Pete hat, I think that you're on the right track. I think what I see in 2026, and obviously front and center for me, is the fact that we intend to launch driverless on highways in the second half of the year. But generically, 30,000 foot view across the industry, whether we're talking robo-taxi or trucks, what I see is leaders starting to emerge. I think that we keep talking like in recent years about we're in the early innings of autonomy. Like, well, maybe we're moving out of that first inning a little bit, because I think I'll say on the robo-taxi side, clearly Waymo has emerged, and maybe Baidu in China. Like I certainly think we're the leader on the trucking side as well. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. But I think generically, I see leaders starting to emerge in various sectors of autonomy right now, and I would think that storyline is going to continue in 2026, and maybe that gets us to 2027, and we see, all right, like who's gonna start to ramp up from there.
I'll say it point blank, 2026 is going to be a big year for autonomy. Autonomy is no longer a science project. Autonomy is a business. Kodiak, in your last Q3, you generated roughly 900,000 of revenue. If you look at the numbers in Q4, you're projected, this is a projection based on analysis, you're going to generate over $1 million in revenue. Aurora's generating revenue. Waymo's generating a ton of revenue. Autonomy is becoming a business. And as autonomy scales, the roads get safer, logistics get more enhanced. And I can't wait to see off-road Pete building and scaling. And in the second half of 2026, driver out. I said, holy wow, because you know what that means? You're coming back, because we got a lot more conversations to have. And I do have one request before we sign off. We got to get matching Permian Pete outfits and head to the Permian Basin and record a podcast inside the Kodiak truck dressed as Permian Pete's in the Permian Basin. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I envy your cowboy hat that you have on right now, Grace. And I would have to say that would absolutely love to have you out in the Permian before we get to the second half of 2026. I think I'm going to make that my resolution to make that happen. Right. Um, let's do that. And I think there's many more people who are far more interesting than me for you to talk to out there. But I would love to get you out there and kind of see what I just described as my firsthand experience. I think it would be awesome to have you out to experience that as well.
The road to autonomy is going on a field trip. We're going on the Permian Basin, and Pete has always been one of my favorite guests. This time was different because he is now an employee of Kodiak. But don't worry, we're still going to have Pete back for wonderful, great conversations. The future is bright. The future is autonomous. The future is Kodiak. Pete, as always, sir, thanks for coming on to the road to autonomy.
Thank you so much for having me, Grayson. Look forward to doing this again.